Hello, my name is Jonathan Coe, and I'm here to explain to you the difference between hardware and software. That being said, I know most of you are probably using a computer or a computer device to watch or consume this information. That being said, according to my audience survey, some of you don't know the difference between hardware and software. However, according to my audience survey, all of you do realize that you do use hardware and software at some point in your daily life. That being said, again, I am here to tell you the difference between hardware and software. I have found there are at least two differences that you can distinguish hardware and software. Those two differences are between how they're accessed and how they function. First, let me explain to you how they are accessed. So, how do you access hardware and software? I'm going to tell you how you can access hardware first. Hardware is essentially, according to this newspaper from learn.g2.com, hardware is, I quote, a physical part of a computer system, end quote. So what does that mean? Well, if you have anything connected to a computer and if you can touch it, those are hardware. Some common examples you might find in a computer system is a keyboard, a mouse, a monitor, and obviously the computer itself. So now that you know how to access hardware, let me explain to you how do you access software. Software is, again, according to this newspaper source from learn.g2.com, software are, quote, programs and applications that you can run on a physical device, end quote. Now, what does that mean? Well, all those programs and apps that you use on a daily basis, those are all software. Some common ones that you might find on your computer are Google Chrome or whatever web browser that you have installed, your calendar function program, your calculator program, and many more other common ones that you might typically find. Some other ones that you might also find that you of current time is probably something like Zoom. That is a software that you probably downloaded so you can use. Now that you know how to access the two, again, how do you access hardware is essentially by if you can touch it and if it's connected to your computer, that's hardware. You access software by whatever program and app that you are currently using on your computer system. Now that you know those two, let me explain to you how they function. Again, let me tell you how hardware functions first. Hardware essentially functions by providing input and code for the software to use. Before I explain to you how that works, let me explain to you what code is. According to Charles Petzold, he provides a definition in his book, Code, the Hidden Language of Hardware and Software. He states that code is, I quote, a system of symbols and rules used to represent instructions to a computer, end quote. Now, what does that mean? A good example of me explaining this to you is you're typing on a keyboard. You typing on a button and you wanting a certain letter, number, character, or symbol to be typed up on your computer screen is what the keyboard does. Every time you push a button on your keyboard, those buttons provide signals and codes for this computer, for the computer to display on your computer screen. That being said, how do software functions? Well, software takes those input and code from the hardware and it produces an output. Now, what does that mean? Again, let me explain a little bit more from the keyboard example. You pushing a button obviously provides the input and code. Is that it depends on what the software does with the code. So if you're just typing up something, the software on whatever program or application you are using, it takes that code and then it displays that letter, number, symbol, or character that you want typed up. So now that you know how hardware and how they function, again, they function by, if it's hardware, it provides input and code for software, and software takes that input and code and produces the output. Now that you know the two differences and how they are accessed and how they function, let me explain to you in a potential scenario where you can need to distinguish between hardware and software. And the example I'm going to explain to you is, say someone wants to build a computer. Building a computer may seem hard, and may require a lot of things. However, but according to this article from Wired.com, they state that they only need 8 components to build a computer. And those 8 things consist of at least 7 hardware and 1 software. Those 7 hardwares are the motherboard, the CPU, memory, storage, the power supply, the graphics card, and the case. As mentioned before, hardware is something that is part of a computer system and can be touched. All the things that I just listed, all of those can be touched and handled touch and handle. So when you're building a computer, those 7 things I mentioned, you're obviously touching and making sure that they are put together and assembled. However, just because they're assembled together, it doesn't mean it's a fully functional computer yet. And that's where the one last component is needed, the software. And that software is the operating system. The operating system essentially makes the computer run and it works as it is intended. Well, to tell you what an operating system is, well, depending on since you're building a computer, more than likely it's probably going to be Windows. Obviously, there are different and other usable operating system. If you're using an Apple device, you're probably using a Mac OS or even iOS. But and then nonetheless, you still need that operating system, which is again software, to make the computer fully function. Now that I've explained to you the difference between hardware and software, between its accessibility and function, you should now be able to distinguish how hardware and software is in your daily life. In conclusion, now that you should now be able to tell the difference between hardware and software in any computer system you are using or that you are around. Now that you know, I really do hope that you now can help realize that when you are using a computer and you see someone else using a computer, that you do realize that is more than just pushing buttons to make a computer work. Thank you.